Please don't leave me hate comments because I said some bad things about Korea. I mean, you can if you want to, but I will just block you. 안녕하세요. 안녕하세요. It's Natalia. I was thinking we could do a Q&A video because I haven't done one in approximately 6 months, which is a very, very long time. So about 2 or 3 days ago on Instagram, I asked you guys to submit questions about anything you wanted to ask. No specific topics, but of course, most questions were about life in Korea. So I am hoping this video doesn't hit the 40-minute mark like most of my Q&As do, but I don't know. I like to share lots of information and I tend to go in detail. So we will see how long this video goes, but let's go ahead and just jump right into it, shall we? First question, what year did you move to South Korea? August. That's not a year. 2021, specifically August. So in a little less than a month, I will be hitting my 2-year anniversary of living in South Korea. That's crazy. Did your family support you moving your life to Korea, or did it take a lot of convincing? So I'm not sure how old you think I am, but I am 27, almost 28. So when I moved here 2 years ago, I was coming at the age of 25. Like, I was already an adult. I had been living away from my parents for quite a while, basically since I started university. And while I did spend about 1.5 years or so living with my parents during COVID, like, it was more so I could save money to move to Korea. So I didn't really need to convince my parents that I should be allowed to move to Korea because I was an adult and I was financially supporting myself at that point. It was more like me telling my parents, like, I'm going to do this, just so you know, so you can mentally prepare for me moving abroad. Paris Baguette or Jours. If you don't know what either of those are French-inspired bakeries here in Korea. It's kind of like either. Honestly, it depends on the exact pastry that I'm wanting to eat. Oof, the next question is pretty loaded. Is there a lot of gender discrimination in Seoul? Have you experienced any? So, haha, it is no secret that South Korea is not a great country to be a woman in. Like, I love living here, but facts are facts. Studies have been done by third parties about like the gender pay gap and crimes against women here, and like how women, like, on paper they have the same rights, but in reality they don't. So according to a study done by the OECD, women in Korea are paid over 30% less than men. In addition, there's a lot of hostility towards the idea of feminism here, so much so that men in their 20s and 30s who hate the idea of feminism are actually considered a desirable voting group. Politicians want to appeal to them because the group is so large. There are so many men here that like hate the idea of equal rights for women. So much so that they've changed the definition of feminism in Korea to women who are against men and are trying to take away men's rights. The current president of Korea, so Yoon Suk-yeol, when he was campaigning, he was very blunt about how he's anti-feminist, and he made a lot of misogynistic remarks while campaigning, and he said that like gender discrimination doesn't exist in Korea, it's bullshit, and that structural discrimination against women in Korea doesn't exist, which is bullshit because there are so many studies proving that it does. He even went as far to say that he was going to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, which has a lot of services that protect women who have been experiencing domestic violence, who have been assaulted, who have been sex trafficked. He's saying that Korea doesn't need that because it doesn't exist, and I don't think he's actually abolished it yet, but he's only 1 year into his presidency out of the whole 5 years that he has. So I think he's just been focused on other things because right now his approval ratings are really, really low, like really low. So if you're interested in learning more about that, like, you can go look it up. There's so many studies, so much out there, like research done about it, but like it's not great. So in terms of like having experienced it myself, nothing outright, but like you can feel it. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like the little side remarks that people make and like I'm mainly talking about men because the majority of women here are very like, I want equal rights, like I'm a feminist, even if they're like too scared to actually say it. If you listen to their ideas and stuff, like they're feminists, but I think they're scared because it's considered like a horrible thing to say that you are. That was a very long-winded answer and I got very, very passionate, but yes, it exists here. unfortunately. How are you treated as a foreigner in Korea? So I'm gonna try and summarize my response because I've talked about this multiple times in various videos, and honestly it could be its own video. But basically, there are times where you are treated so well because you are a foreigner, and then there are times where you are treated horribly because you are a foreigner. And like, living in Korea as a foreigner, it doesn't matter how good at Korean you get, it doesn't matter how much you've adjusted to society or assimilated to Korean society, it doesn't matter if you act like a Korean and dress like a Korean and marry a Korean and have Korean babies or something. Like, you can be here for years and years and years and it doesn't matter. Like, yes, obviously the people in your immediate circle will accept you and view you as someone that I guess kind of belongs there, but to everyone else that doesn't know you, so the majority of Korea, you are an outsider and you don't belong here. And I say this because people, even when they're not trying to be mean or trying to tell you to go home, like even when they have the best of intentions, you can tell that they don't think you belong here. Also, the government has proven time and time again that while they want a lot of foreigners to come and visit Korea and to come study in Korea, they don't want us to stay here. They want us to leave. There's like tons and tons of examples. You just have to find the most recent ones to know that as much as Korea's wanting all this global attention, they're still very, we are Korea, you're a foreigner, you're not one of us. And I know somebody in the comments is gonna get super offended that I said that and say that I just need to go home because I'm so ungrateful and blah 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 blah, but like, unless you have lived here for an extended amount of time, I'm not talking about exchange students because exchange students have a very sheltered experience in most cases, then you have to experience it to know what I'm talking about. Okay, a less loaded question. Do you plan to have children? Currently, no, I do not plan to have children, but I do recognize that I'm in a current stage in my life where children make absolutely no sense. So when I am in a different stage of my life, perhaps I will change my mind about having children. Also, the idea of giving birth scares the crap out of me. Like, the more I learn about pregnancy and what happens to your body, the less I want to have kids. Have you taken your wisdom teeth out? Yes, I got them taken out about 5 to 6 months before I moved to Korea. Do you prefer supply chain or marketing? So if you don't know, I currently work in marketing at a Korean skincare company. But when I lived and worked in the USA, I worked in supply chain, specifically procurement, because that's what my undergraduate degree is in. It's in supply chain. So having worked in the industry for both, personally, I prefer marketing. I think it's like less routine. With supply chain, I was doing the same thing pretty much every day. Even once I got a promotion at my previous company, like, I still felt like my days all looked the same, which in a way was really great. Because with marketing, while I get to do different things all the time, I am really mentally exhausted because I have to rely on my creativity a lot, where with procurement, I didn't have to rely on my creativity like at all. So there are pros and cons to both, but overall, I would say I prefer marketing. Do you see yourself staying in Korea long term? If not, why would you move away? So no, I do not see myself staying here long term. Like, I feel like this can be summarized in my family is not in Korea. My family is back home. I have a lovely, wonderful support system here in Korea. Lots and lots of friends that I can depend on, but like, my family is not here. Like, as much as I love Korea, that doesn't change the fact that my parents are getting older, that my grandparents are getting older, that all my tios and tias are getting older. Not to mention I'm missing life events. Like, oh my god, I feel like I'm gonna start crying. My brother graduated from college in May and I wasn't able to go, because I am here, because I have a job here where I can't just, fly home to the US for something and then fly back. Speaking more specifically about like Korea, Korea doesn't treat its elderly or senior citizens very well. And I know in the West we have this idea that because Korea has Confucian beliefs that they treat their like elders really well and with a lot of respect. And at some point they did. The younger generation here doesn't hold that belief the way that their grandparents did when they were younger. Like, it's very obvious that unless you are my grandma, unless you are my grandpa, I don't care. Like, it's very, I hate saying it because it's like, it's awful. It's a horrible thing. But like, it's very, very obvious that that is the case. You'll see a young person sit in a seat that is for senior citizens. And while yes, they can sit there, if there are no senior citizens that want to sit there, or like if you are disabled or if you are pregnant, like you are allowed to sit there. But like if you are a very like healthy, able-bodied person sitting there and then a senior citizen gets on the bus, for example, you're supposed to get up. But these young people aren't getting up. They see them, acknowledge them, and then look back at their phones. And you'll see old people that are literally like 90 years old hanging on for dear life onto the pole so that they don't fall over on the bus. And I'm talking about the bus because it's most upsetting to see it on the bus, because we all know Korean buses and like taxi drivers go like this, like they're crazy, okay? And like you see them really like literally hanging on for dear life, and these young people won't get up. I don't want to get old here because I don't want to be treated like that. Like that's awful. It makes me so, oh my gosh, it makes me so angry. Okay, this is gonna be a personal anecdote. My sister and I were coming out of the subway station, okay? There's a whole like flight and a half of stairs that you have to go up. We're going up, and there's this old man, really old, trembling, coming down the stairs, okay? And I see him, and I remember thinking like, does he need help? Or is he like, I don't wanna offend him, but like he looks like he should have taken the elevator. So I'm kind of like watching him because I'm kind of scared he's gonna fall. And then this young man, who was probably a college student, because this was like Annam, so right next to Korea University, this young man comes running down the stairs, and I'm pretty sure he bumped into this old man. Like I'm not sure because that's one of the times I was looking at my feet trying to not fall myself. This old man falls down several like steps, okay? He's on the ground. It makes me so angry. This young man looks at him on the ground and then kept running down the stairs. And I literally looked at him because I thought he would stop and like try to help him, because I'm pretty sure he bumped into him. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I was so angry because he didn't stop. And so I had to try and run up the stairs, and all the other young Korean people on the stairwell, they didn't even try to help him until I said, what the fuck? And started running up the stairs, which I can't even run up the stairs very fast, so it was more like power walking. But like I basically called them out on the fact that they weren't helping him, and so then they came over to help him try to get up. Like it was ridiculous. It made me so angry. Like even now talking about it, I feel like I start trembling because it just gets me so angry. I'm like, he fell over. He's old. Like he's old. And like you're not gonna do anything? Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm starting to like sound like I'm scolding you. I'm just trying to say like Korea's not a great place to be old in. What will set you up for experience in getting a non-teaching job? Can you get one straight out of college, or do you need to have a master's or professional experience? So based on what I've seen, it's pretty, I don't want to discourage anyone, but it's nearly impossible to get a job in Korea straight out of college if you are not graduating from a Korean university. And even if you are, like let's say you're graduating from Yonsei or Korea University or Seoul National University with your bachelor's and you speak Korean, it's still very, very difficult to get a job here because Korean companies don't want to sponsor visas. I feel like I already knew this, but then when I was personally like looking for a job, it became even more apparent to me how much Korean companies don't want to sponsor visas. There were so many times I would apply for a job, and then a few weeks later they would take the job posting down and then repost the exact same job with all the same requirements, and then at the very bottom it would have a new line that said, we do not sponsor visas, you need to have an F-series visa in order to apply for this job. So if you're not familiar with the F-series visas, they're basically long-term residency visas where your visa is not linked to any sponsors. So like with my current company, which is sponsoring my visa, I got really lucky with them. I think the only reason that they were willing to look into sponsoring me is because everything that I do in my job, like all the day-to-day stuff that I do, I already knew how to do because of my influencer background. I already knew how to make content. I already knew how to do brand deals. I already knew how to use all the programs that I use to do my job. I know a lot of people here that like are graduating from Korean universities, they want to stay here and they can't find any companies that are willing to sponsor their visas. Also with Korea, the immigration laws are like you need to get a job within your major if you don't have a certain amount of professional experience in a different area. So for me, the only reason I'm able to work in marketing is because of my influencer background and the years of experience I have working as a freelance influencer, working with different companies. Otherwise, I would have only been able to work in supply chain because that's what my university degree is in. It's really hard. Like, I think you should try, but I don't think you should think that like, if I try, I'll get it. Because It's really hard. How would you describe your clothing style and where do you get inspo for your outfits? I would say my clothing style is very like pastel, flowy, and cottagecore, which is kind of funny because I don't like the idea of cottagecore, but when I look at my wardrobe, it's very cottagecore. I want to say like when it comes to inspo, I feel like I don't go anywhere specific, especially because most of my outfits are actually just dresses. So I don't really have to think that hard. Speaking of which, my favorite place to buy dresses, because you guys ask me a lot on Instagram, is a boutique called Morning Lavender. They're based in California. I actually have a discount code for them, which is kind of funny because I never talked about it, but I do have a discount code for them. I'll put them in the description box if you want to like check it out and use it, but they have the cutest dresses and like they fit right. So because they're a boutique, they carry like a range of different brands, and because of that, they have exact measurements for everything in their store. So if you know your measurements, you can go in and see like, oh, in this dress, I'm a small, but in that dress, I'm a large. In that skirt, I'm a small. Like, it's great. And it also proves that women's sizing is just awful. But like the clothing there, amazing. I love it. Like almost all of my dresses are actually from that boutique. Do you want any tattoos at any stage in your life? I would love to get a fine line colored tattoo that somehow relates to BTS. Like I really love the Love Yourself flowers and the Love Yourself hearts. Like I would probably do all 4 flowers somewhere on my body, or like just get one and do it like right here, be a basic. But I know in reality I'm not gonna get it because I don't like how they tend to like bleed out as they get older, and because I'm someone that really likes really dainty things, like I don't like the idea of having like my fine line tattoo getting blurry. What is the fitness culture like? For example, access to gyms, healthy food, etc, etc, etc. So you guys know I'm not someone that tends to go to the gym or exercise or any of that stuff, so I'm not really the best person to ask, but I will share what I have seen. So here, I feel like most people put in effort to exercise and to go to the gym or to move their body in some kind of way. Like there are gyms or 헬스장 literally everywhere. At least in Seoul, they're like literally everywhere. You can find multiple gyms on one street. And I feel like people here tend to do PT a lot or have personal trainers that they meet with regularly, like way more than in the USA. Like way more. And there are a lot of yoga and Pilates studios here. Pole dancing is like a common form of exercise for women, like, and hiking. There's so many people that love hiking. And I mean, Korea is very mountainous, like more than I think people realize. Like there's so many mountains. So people tend to go hiking a lot. So I would say like access to places to work out or like ways to work out is like very available. When it comes to more like healthy food options, not so much. Here, you're not gonna see a salad on the menu unless you're going to a place that is labeled as diet food, because yes, there are restaurants here that literally say diet food or diet restaurant, like that is a thing. Or if you're going to an Italian restaurant, because the Italian restaurants here, it'll be like soup, pasta, and salads. But other than that, there's not a lot of healthy food. And I'm not saying that like only salads are healthy, because that's not true, but like the Korean diet, contrary to popular belief, is not actually that great when it comes to like health. There's a lot of oil, there's a lot of like fats, vegetables are pretty much non-existent. Like they're like a little sprinkled topping on Korean dishes. Like I know people like to say like, but bibimbap has so many vegetables. Not really. No. Like they're literally just like little sprinkles on top and then a ton of rice. Could you see yourself working and living in another country that isn't the USA or Korea? No. Not really. I really love Korea. I love speaking Korean every day. I love learning more about Korea and learning more Korean every day. I'm one of those people where I can't imagine living in a foreign country without learning the local language. So for example, if I were to suddenly have this great opportunity to work in Germany, it would really stress me out, because like I might not even go, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, now I have to learn German. I can't be one of those Americans that moves to Germany and then doesn't learn German. Also, like I said earlier, my family's in the US and it doesn't make sense to me to leave Korea and not be moving back home. Okay, I'm talking really fast, but I'm really trying to answer as many questions as possible. If I don't answer your question, I'm really sorry. There were so many. Like if you asked me multiple questions, I tried to answer at least one of them. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. So, is there a lot of street art or vandalism in Korea? No, not really. Does it exist? Yes. Is it common? Not necessarily. I feel like there are certain areas in Korea where you'll see it a lot, like in Hongdae or Hapjeong, but like in general, you don't really see it. How often do you speak with your friends and family back home in the USA? So before I was working, I probably talked to my parents every other week, if not every week. But now that I am working, it's not as great. I probably only talk to them every 2 to 3 weeks. When it comes to friends, I am the worst friend ever. I will not talk to someone for months just because it takes effort, because they're on the other side of the world. In general, I'm one of those friends that, like, to me, if we don't talk, that doesn't mean we're not friends. It just means that we're both really busy, and I respect that. So like with my friends back home, if they want to get a response from me that isn't delivered within 2 to 3 business days, then they have to ask me a question or something that's extremely time sensitive. Where in Korea would you like to visit or revisit? So since January, I have really been wanting to go back to Busan, which is kind of funny because I used to say in my videos that I didn't like Busan. But now that I've been to Busan multiple times, I'm like, actually, I like Busan, and just had a really bad experience with the males in Busan. I'm pretty sure I explained that in some video somewhere. For those of you that have been watching my content for multiple years, if I've never said it, you can just tell me in the comments section that I've never said it, and maybe I'll share it in a future video. Other than Busan, I'm gonna try and slow down my talking because I feel like I suddenly got really, really fast. I've really been wanting to go back to Gyeongju. So I know Gyeongju is like very popular among 외국인 for like wearing hanbok and like all these like more historic areas, but I think a lot of people don't know that Gyeongju was the capital of the Shilla Kingdom. Yes, if you don't know what I'm talking about, so you've probably heard of like the Joseon dynasty, right? Yeah, so before Joseon, there were 3 kingdoms within Korea. There was Goguryeo, which was the biggest one. Then there was the Shilla, and then there was the Baekje. So these are 3 different kingdoms in Korea that took up the Korean peninsula. One of these kingdoms was the Shilla, and their capital was Gyeongju. And that's why there's a lot of like historical places within Gyeongju or in Gyeongju. It's really beautiful. I've only been there once and I wasn't able to explore it properly because I was only there for a few hours. In terms of places that I haven't been and would like to go, Sokcho, Gangneung, Jeju. I know I've never been to Jeju. And Gongju. So Gongju is definitely a less popular place to visit among 외국인, but it is the capital, or was the capital, of the Baekje kingdom. So there's a lot of history there too, and I would love to see it. I would see the city that was the capital of Goguryeo, but that's Pyongyang, so North Korea. So that one is unavailable to me. Have you ever slept in a real hanok, like an Airbnb or something like that? So I assume you're asking me this because you want to know what my experience was and if I recommend it. So yes. There have been 2 times that I've stayed in a hanok. The first one was in Chungju. It was like a hanok that had been converted into guest house. It was okay, not necessarily like somewhere where I'd be like, you should go there, but like, it was fine. The other one was a hanok hotel in Jeonju. So I chose to stay in a hanok, which you guys actually saw part of already. But anyway, hanok, very nice. Like honestly, I don't really like sleeping in hanoks because it usually means you're sleeping on the ground, which if there's like a mattress topper on the ground or like lots of bedding that kind of cushions you, it's fine. But most of the time it's literally a blanket on the ground. I don't know, I guess I'm just old. Like it hurts my back and then I have a horrible day the next day. So I don't like sleeping in hanoks because I have to sleep on the ground. And then a lot of times, like if you're staying in a older hanok, like a legitimate hanok, the water pressure isn't good, which means you can't flush anything down the toilet. So you have to put everything into the trash cans. So if you're staying there multiple days, when you do your business, it's kind of there with you. And I don't like that. That sounds like not a fun vacation. Is it expensive to live there? So you're not gonna like my answer because my answer is that it is relative. It depends on where you are coming from. So if you were like me, if you were coming from the United States where the dollar is stronger than the Korean won, where the dollar has more buying power than the Korean won, when you come to Korea, suddenly you got a lot richer. Assuming you're using your American dollars to fund your lifestyle or to fund your trip, everything looks super cheap, or like cheaper for the most part. for most things, not everything, but for most things. But if you are coming from a place in Latin America, and I say specifically Latin America because my friends from Latin America have told me this. I'm not just saying it just because I'm saying it because people have told me who are from those countries. If you're coming from a country where the local currency isn't as strong as the Korean won, then you come to Korea and everything is more expensive than back home. My friend said that like for most people that come from Latin America, their first year in Korea, like they don't spend a lot of money because they have to adjust to the fact that everything is way more expensive for them. So in their minds, right, they have like a coffee should cost this much, a shirt should cost this much, and they have to basically like change what their standard costs are for things because everything has gone up. Now, if you are not using your foreign currency to fund your lifestyle in Korea, like if you came here as a teacher, and you are being paid in Korean won now, right, because you work at a Korean institution, then it kind of depends on what you are going to consider expensive or not expensive based on what your salary is, because at that point, like the foreign currency doesn't affect whether you think something is expensive or not expensive. So like for me personally, now that I am depending on my Korean salary to buy things and like to pay my rent instead of my American money that I saved up and then moved here with, like suddenly things look more expensive to me because I am being paid in Korean won. So those are all the questions that I planned to answer. Again, if I didn't include your question, I'm so sorry. Maybe I will include it in an upcoming vlog because you guys asked a lot of really good questions. I hope this was helpful and insightful and educational in some ways. And please don't leave me hate comments because I said some bad things about Korea. I mean, you can if you want to, but I will just block you. Okay, that's it. 다음에 봐요, guys. Bye.